Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma DAF Tzadi Aleph. We are holding 12 lines off the top of the Yomid right at the 2 dots. Iboya Lehu. Here comes a question posed by the Bnei HaYeshiva. We learned yesterday about a concept called Omed, evaluation. We appraise the weapon used in the murder incident to determine whether in fact this weapon was capable of putting this person to death. Otherwise, the murderer is exempt, because this attack, right, did not necessarily cause his death. It wasn't of such severe nature to bring about that catastrophic result. And we learn this from the pasuk that we have to make that appraisal, that evaluation, which we call Omed, Umdina. Now the question is like this: Yesh Omed l'nezakin. What about injuries? Does this concept apply there as well? Well, we have to take a look at this, stick and see, well, does this stick have the ability to inflict this type of injury? The same as we do by murder. Or perhaps it doesn't apply when it comes to injuries. Why the difference? When it comes to a murder case, there we need to evaluate. This type of attack can cause his death, but a different type of attack can't, in which case the fellow is off the hook. But when it comes to hurting somebody, there's no point in evaluating and appraising and examining the item used in the incident, because, as Rashi says, the zimnin the itzak b'kodu. Sometimes a person can get hurt even just by a little interacting with something very small and not to something that looks relatively innocent can cause harm and injury. So perhaps in most cases it won't, but you never know. In this case it did. So there's no point in appraising and evaluating the item used to inflict this wound. Or we don't differentiate between Misa and Nizak. No, perhaps there's no difference between the two. Okay, so the question is, when there was an injury, do we actually go ahead and inspect the item used to inflict that injury, or is he chayiv regardless? Tashmai comes a raya to this question. Ma bur, we have a Mishnah. Just as a bur, she'esh boy kidei lahamas asar tefachim, if it's 10 tefach deep, it's a real pit, it can cause death to a person, to an animal falling into the bur. Afkoil she'esh boy kidei lahamas asar tefachim. Likewise, any sort of obstacle, any sort of pit of any shape, size, or form, if it's deep enough to kill, if it's 10 tefach in depth, the creator of that bur, of that obstacle, is liable. Okay? Now, if it was shallower than the 10 tefach depth required to kill, an animal falls into this shallow pit and dies, you're potter. You have no business dying in a shallow pit. But if she was injured, the owner of the bur is chayiv. The Gemara is assuming, my lab, let's assume, the Mishnah is sort of starting at the low number. If it's 1 tefach deep, 2 tefach, up until, not including 10, right? Bava Kamma. And the Mishnah means like this: from 1 until 10, and not including 10. It can bring about death, but it could not bring about death. Misa leka. You're not expecting an animal to die in a shallow pit, but in a zaken ika, injury, that's expected. And even if it's just very shallow, just a little bump, 1 tefach deep, Alma. Apparently, l'nezaken kohodu shmami no. Ein oimdin l'nezaken. Apparently, when it comes to damages and injuries, even a little, innocent-looking thing can trigger nezek. Shmami no ein oimdin l'nezaken. So clearly, there's no point in evaluating the circumstances. Fact is, There was an injury, you have to pay. Loi, says the Gemara, not so. Let's start the other way, from top down. And the Mishnah means like this. Sarah, if it's 10 tafach in depth, then you can expect an animal to die in there, and you're chayiv if in fact that happens. But a bit less than 10, not down to 1. 10 minus, a little bit. It's still deep enough to actually cause injury. There we say nizak and isa misa leka, injury, yeah, death, no. But it has to be, of some substantial depth, right? For us to pin the blame on the owner of the pit. And therefore, certainly we have to go and evaluate and estimate if, in fact, this was the cause of the nezek. And in every situation, likewise, we have to evaluate. Is it fair to say that this stick caused, or is it just an overreaction on account of the victim? This is not to be attributed to the attack, right? Tashma, here comes another raya. So this fellow struck another man on his eye, blinded him. On his ear, and made him deaf. So if it happened to the Evet Kanani, which he owns, we know that if the owner knocks out his tooth or eye, or any of the other, these permanent injuries, so the Evet goes free. Okay, the pasuk actually speaks about the eye and the tooth. Shem b'ayim, but the Chachamim, back in Kedushin of Chafei, expanded it to any other type of permanent injury, which we call the Rashi Eivarim She'enam Chayzrim. So bottom line is, he struck the Evet goes free. But that's only if he actually physically struck the Evet directly. But let's say he did it indirectly. Keneged Aznei V'Eni Shemea. Sorry, Keneged Einai V'Eni Roya, Keneged Aznei V'Eni Shemea. He took a big bat, hit the wall right near his eye, and the Evet got blinded. Whether it was the energy or the waves or the shock, whatever it is. He struck the wall very loudly and the Evet went deaf. Ein Eved Yoyitze B'Hen L'Cheres. The Evet doesn't get his ticket to freedom. My timer. So the question is, why not? What's the difference? Lav Mishum D'Beinun Umdana. Oh, appraisal. Estimation. We have to actually determine that his act was the cause of his blindness, etc. In this case, we can't substantiate it. So clearly, umdana applies. Ushmamna yesh umdana l'nezaka. Even when it comes to injuries, we have to confirm that it was his act that actually triggered this injury. Says it, well, no. Look, that's not the reason why the evidence doesn't go free in this case. Here comes an interesting point. It's totally unrelated to the owner's striking on the wall. It's the shock. It's the Evet got so shaken that he got blinded. That was sort of his body's reaction. He became deaf. So that's totally unattributed to the attacker. It's totally self-imposed. Technically, of course, he caused it, but indirectly. Ultimately, the victim took it to heart, so to speak, and allowed himself to get shocked. Interesting point. And that ultimately brought his injury. Kedesanya, as we learned, hamavis is chavere. A person scares somebody. Pater medini adam v'chayim b'dini shamayim. Here, down here in the Bezdin, we can't do anything about it, but Hashem keeps track. Keita, for instance, taka ba'oznai v'chirshay. He yelled into this fellow's ear, made him deaf. Pater. There's no payment for such a thing. But if he took hold of his ear and he yelled into it, he made it's like there was physical contact. That's a totally different thing. And here, he's responsible for bringing about this deafness because it took on more of a physical property. In any case, we see this idea that unless it's actually an attack of a physical nature, just yelling, sure, it triggered, it caused, but it's not a direct act, and therefore we sort of, in a way, attribute it to the victim, that he allowed himself to get, shaken and scared and shocked, and we don't consider this to be a direct physical attack, and therefore, in the case of the master with the Eved doesn't go free. So it's not a question of evaluating and estimating whether this could have brought... Yeah, we know this triggered it, but ultimately, technically, it wasn't not a direct attack, wasn't a direct physical attack, and therefore he's put. Tashma. So we know that when there's an attack, there are 5 payments. Right? Nezek, tsar, ripui, right? Diminishing of market value, discomfort, pain, doctor bills, unemployment, embarrassment, right? So those 5 payments are based on an oimed. Bezdin sits down and evaluates, the exact amount per payment. And that's paid right away. It's not paid in installments, he pays it off right away. So let's say when it comes to doctor bills or unemployment, once again, they evaluate, okay, it's going to take X amount to get him better. He's going to lose X amount of weeks of work. That amount is paid off right away. Now, let's say let's say they determined 2 weeks off from work, and he's going to pay him off that amount, and then his situation deteriorated and he needs an extra week off from work. Halacha is he doesn't get more than 2 weeks worth of his unemployment, even though it was prolonged, but the attacker is only responsible as per Bezdin's determination. Now, Amdu v'hivri, go the other way. He was expected to take off 2 weeks, and after a week, he's up and running, he's back to work. He gets the full 2-week unemployment payout. Why? Says Rashi. Hashem had rachmanas on him. Hashem expedited his recovery. The attacker gets no credit for that. So he sticks with the same amount. Bottom line, the Brisa speaks about amdu, evaluations, estimations. Clearly, even when it comes to injuries, we do evaluation. Says Gemara, no. It's unrelated to our previous discussion. Because here we're speaking l'meimad gavra, to evaluate in terms of the victim. How ill, how long is he going to be sick? How is he going to be affected due to this attack? How much not? Meaning how long, how short, how quick is he going to recover? There's no question. Of course, that has to be determined. Our question was regarding the weapon used, the stick, right? So the item used in the attack. Do we have to sit down and inspect it and examine it, whether the injury is justified based on the weapon used, whether this thing can inflict this damage or not? That was our question. And that we haven't really determined. So the question still stands. Tashmai comes a raya. This was yesterday. Ma egref miyuchad shemasr le'eda le'edim. So the pasuk there speaks about an injury, and it could have happened through an egref, a fist, or a stone. And Shimon HaTimni says, look, let's equate the two things. Just like a fist can be taken a look at, Bezdin could look at it, the Eidah, the Sanhedrin, the Eidim, who witnessed the attack, and evaluate and see whether, in fact, this fist was worthy of this injury, of inflicting this injury. Likewise, any weapon used must have that same ability to be examined and scrutinized by the Sanhedrin and the Eidim. Clearly, we see from here, yesh oimed l'nezaken. Even when it comes to injuries, we have to make that inspection. Shmamina. Omar. Let's go back to the Brisa. So we learned amdu v'ivri. He was meant to be lay put for 2 weeks, and he recovered quicker. He's back to work. He's entitled to the full payout of full 2 weeks because Hashem had rachmanas on him, but he doesn't lose out. Messiah the Rav is right to Rav, who told us a similar halacha. His victim was expected to be put out for the day, Midday, he's up and running again. He's back to work. Does he get the full day unemployment or not? He gets the full day's unemployment. Why? Min Shemaya, from Hashem. Hu derachmi alei. They had rachmanas on him. It's his mazel, and he's entitled to the full payout. Now Mishnah says, Rakak v'gia v'yuharoik v'hever. So you spit at a person, you embarrassed him, Boish's payout is in place. Amar Papa, that's only l'shanu ela boy, if it actually reached the person, aval b'bigdoi. But if the spittle hit just the baggage of the victim, loy, there's no Boish's payout. It's not severe enough to trigger the Boish's payment. Loy? Why? It says more, why? Why is it, any worse than, or any better than verbal embarrassment? I mean, embarrassment is embarrassment. Amri Marava. So they said it's Yisrael, Mishmei Rabbi Yehuda. So we learn from this Mishnah, although everything's embarrassing, but there are different levels. And Boish's payout is only if it takes on a physical form. If you just verbally embarrassed him, there's no payout. And the Mepharshim explained because the pasuk in discussing Boish's clearly depicts a situation where there was physical contact. So only that would trigger the Boish's payout. Everything else, not very nice, but there's no payment involved. So the Tue May says, well, Boish's has to be determined based on this individual's prominence and standing in the community. So questions like this. Tue May lekula ka'amar or lechumra ka'amar? Was the Tue May telling us that this amount discussed in the Mishnah, we discussed the amount of 400 zuz, right? Is only for a upstanding individual who really takes it to heart, but just a plain simple yid, a regular ordinary community member, he won't be entitled to such a large payout. L'kula ka'amar, or the chumra ka'amar, or perhaps the other way. 400 is standard. If you're really chashiv, you get more. And the Gemara explains, l'kula ka'amar, perhaps he meant l'kula. The ika ani delay boy the mishkal kuli hay. Poor man doesn't get fazed by this type of onslaught. He doesn't get too embarrassed so he's not going to get that full 400 payout. Or perhaps the other way around, the chumrah. Everybody is entitled to the basic payout of 400. An usher, a wealthy man, who really takes it to heart, really super sensitive to public perception, he's going to get more than that. To Ashma, he comes it right. Because remember, Rabbi Kiva responded. Rabbi Kiva responded, I feel on English of Yisrael, you should know anybody, even a most impoverished person amongst Israel, he's entitled to the full payout. He has a big yichus. He comes from the Avos. They're entitled to the full payout. They're as sensitive as, for example, a wealthy person who was wealthy, he lost all his money. He still has that, inner pride, and he's susceptible to shame and embarrassment, almost as though he's still wealthy, right? So every yid is just as vulnerable and has to be viewed in the same light as a person who was once wealthy. So even a poor man still has that inner pride and that feeling of innate value. Why? Because of our DNA. Shehem b'nei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Look at our Zaydus. So Shema Mino, Tue May lekula ka'amar Shema Mino. So clearly, Rabbi Kiva was responding, right? Tue May apparently was saying, look, 400 is for a real important man, but regular push it to Yid doesn't get that much. On that, Rabbi Kiva responds and says, no, we're all equal. All Yidim were created equal and deserve the same amount of Boish's payout due to their innate value. Shehem b'nei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. So this fellow embarrassed the woman. He was obligated to pay, and he asked Rabbi Kiva for some time. And he gave him some time. Really? We extend this payout period? Since when do we allow a delay in this payment. We never delay when it comes to payouts with respect to chavoles injuries. Answers the Gemara, that's only true when there was loss of value. There was an actual physical injury. There we trigger payment right away. When it comes to embarrassment, which is just emotional, it's not an actual loss of value, that takes on a degree of leniency, and we allow for sort of a delay if necessary. So this fellow kept an eye on the Isha and found her standing near the street, and took the opportunity to stage this whole thing with the oil and to prove that she doesn't necessarily maintain a high level of dignity. Okay, so the keeper says, no, who cares? What she does to herself is her business. Right? So even though a person is not allowed to, Mishnah says, even though a person is not allowed to inflict self-injuries, but that's his business. So even if he does it to himself, but if you do it, you're chayiv. Okay? Says the Gemara, but in the Brisa, Rabbi Kiva used different language, which indicates that a person may injure himself. Vatanya, Amar Rabbi Kiva, tzalalt of my madirim, you've taken a real deep, scuba dive in deep water, expecting some sort of treasure discovery, and you end up with just a little piece of pottery. Basically, all your efforts didn't really hold water, didn't really produce. Because a person is allowed to inflict self-injury, but you can't do it to him. So she embarrassed herself, that's her business, but you still can't, and you're chayiv. So here he's saying that a person may harm himself. And the Mishnah says a person may not. How does that work? Amar Rabbi Kasha, depends what? Physical or emotional. Kam b'chavala, physical injury is usher to self-inflict. But kam b'baishis, when it comes to embarrassment, the person can do that. In fact, it's a big kapara. The Sfarim say the biggest atonement is getting embarrassed. It doesn't cost you money, it doesn't cost you health, it doesn't take your time, right? So big tzaddikim looked for opportunities to, bring about baishis on themselves. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? But the Mishnah is speaking about baishis, and still he says you can't. And it says you can't. We're speaking about baishis. That was the context at hand, right? Embarrassments. And she embarrassed herself, and Rakiva says it's okay. A person's not allowed to do that. Even baishis you can't self-inflict. No, he meant like this. You have to sort of reread the Mishnah. Needless to say, that in terms of self-embarrassment, which a person can bring about, still, if you do it to them, they can do it to themselves, but you can't do it to them and you're chayiv. So that's pashat. The chiddush is even when it comes to physical, self-imposed physical injuries, where a person is not allowed to do that to himself. Right? That you can't do. And the person still is careless and does self-inflict injuries. So perhaps you think, okay, so then, he's a careless person and, you're allowed to attack him as well. But still, and if others do it to him, they have to pay. So that's how we learn the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, why not? A person is not allowed to self-inflict injuries. You have a brisa. Perhaps if a person makes a shavua, an oath that he's going to harm himself, do something bad, and he did not follow through, you would think he's potter. He's absolved from the consequences. The pasuk clearly packages it as one. The halacha of shvuah and the consequences that come as a result of ignoring the shvuah applies to good and bad stuff. So just like on the good side, the positive side is something that you're allowed to do. Likewise, on the negative side is something you're allowed to do, and it includes avi, it includes nishba lahara ba'atzma lehera. If he promised to do something bad to himself and he didn't follow through, he has to pay the consequence. Clearly, a person is allowed to self-inflict. Amar Shmuel, hold it. We're not talking about injuries. Be'eshe betanis. He committed himself to a fast, to abstain from food, and that's something you can do. It's not an outright injury. And that's what the Bryce is speaking about. But injury, you can't do that. Says the Gemara, okay, if we're speaking about fasting, let's go to the other part of the Brisa there. With respect to other people. Right? You promise to do this to other people. The kavasaga by ras acher. Likewise, in terms of doing it to other people, how can you do something bad to the next person? So again, we're speaking about having them fast. Lo shiva matanis. How could you have another person? How could you force another person to fast? It's not in your hands. Acheram mimoisilu betanisa. What do you mean? I'm going to make the other person fast? Yeah. The mahadak lo bedrunya. He locked him up in a small room. So that's what he committed to doing. So it's possible to do ra to another person in this manner. Says him about Tanya, but the Brisa clearly describes this fellow as having more violent plans. What's an example of doing bad to others? I'm going to hit him and break open his brain, his head, his brain. So clearly we speak about physical attacks. And when it relates to himself, it's also self-infliction of wounds. And the Brisa indicates that you can do that. Rishus, it's in his hands. Says him, well, you're right. Machlekes tanoim. Ela tanoi. Dikal man domar. Ein adam rashai l'chaval ba'atzmoi. One shita says, one may not self-injure. Yikuman domar. Adam rashai l'chaval ba'atzmoi. Other one disagrees. You can do it. Man tanat d'sham mislei domar. Ein adam rashai l'chaval ba'atzmoi. Who's the shita? That one may not do so. Ilem haitano desani. Is it the following Tanya of the following Brisa? Based on a pasuk. V'aches dimchem l'ashesechem edrosh. I'm going to be doirish. I'm going to hold you accountable for your dam, for your blood. What's that going on? It's going on a person chas v'shalom taking his life, and Hashem says, no, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to go to the nefesh and hold you accountable for your dam. So clearly, a person cannot self-inflict. Maybe that's talking about death, of course, that you can't do. But who says an injury is treated the same way? Ela haitano desani, it's the following shita. Mekarin al hameis. When a relative dies, we do kriya, we tear our beged. No concern of following the ways of the goyim, even though they do it. We do it based on our minhag and our halacha and our Torah. But there's a limit. Shamati, I heard Shamakareya al hameis. If a person overdoes it, he gets malchus. Why? Why malchus? Mishum bal tashchus. One is not allowed to destroy for no good reason. So clearly, self-destruction is asur. Well, says the Gemara once again, there's distinction. And the Gemara is assuming you can't tear a beged. Certainly, you can't tear your body. Well, says the Gemara, who says maybe a beged is worse because it doesn't recover, doesn't heal. It's a loss which is permanent. But one's goof, a small injury, maybe it's going to heal, it's okay. We see Rabbi Yechon treated his begadim with utmost respect. Kari Lamani, he would relate to his begadim, to his garments, he would call them mechabdusa. They give me honor. They cover me. They highlight the fact that my neshama is what I identify with, not my guf, which is just covered, which is just secondary. And we have another story, Rav Chizda, kad have a maski ben his maybe higa, when he would walk amongst the thorns and was concerned that they would tear his beged madli lulamani. He would lift up his robe, Amar, and he would explain, why am I exposing my skin to the thorns? Zamala rucha. Skin, is going to heal. It's going to get a scab, it's going to heal. But my begadim will remain torn. So clearly they cared more in a way for their beggar than getting a scratch. So I understand that a person's not allowed to tear his begadim, but who says it applies to a guf? Who the sanya? We have another brayso, and clearly a person must protect his guf as well. Amar Rabbi Elazar Akapa Beribi. The great Rabbi Elazar Akapa explained like this. This is regarding a nazir who committed to refrain from wine, right? And the pasuk relates to him as a sinner. He has to bring a carbon to atone for his. What do you mean? What did he do wrong? He killed somebody. What kind of nefesh was he chayte with? Refraining from wine, depriving oneself, is called a chait. And we can learn from look, even just this person who simply refrained from just one thing, wine, we give him a label as a chayte. Hashem created the world to enjoy, not to deprive. Certainly a person sits and fasts and injures himself, of course, it's not okay. Tani Rabba Bar Chana Kumei Rav. So Rabbi Chana presented the halacha, that's a brayso, in front of Rav as follows. Shori Harakta. Reuben approaches Shimon. Why'd you kill my ox? Why'd you chop off my young plantations? Well, Shimon responds, you told me to kill the animal. You told me to trim your plants. Does he have to pay? No, pater. That was the halacha. So Rav, upon hearing this, exclaimed in surprise. I mean, if that's the case, then it's just a free-for-all. Anybody can say, well, you told me. If that's the case, literally means you haven't allowed people to live, meaning there's no way to conduct, no way to have a properly functioning society. If anybody can just come and claim, well, you're to blame for my kol kamini. Since when does a person have a right to put forth such a claim? Amalei, so Rabbi Rechana responded, okay, Ismaish, I just delete the brayso, it's incorrect. Amalei, he says, no, lie. I have a way out. To targum as nisach, there's one way you can sort of explain your brayso. How does it make sense? How can the person absolve himself and get off the hook by claiming that it was meant to be that you have an ox which is slated for death, he killed people, he's a dangerous animal, he's about to be put to death. Or a tree which is avodah zarah, let's say, and it's got to be chopped off. So in that case, the fellow can say, look, you told me to do it. If that's the story, my kotoin lays. What's the other person claiming? I mean, he had a full right to the amalei anah beina l'mavad hamitzvah, because he can say, look, I understand that the animal was meant to be killed and all that, but the owner of the animal, wanted to do the mitzvah. Why'd you grab the mitzvah from me? I never told you to do it, right? The sanya v'shafach hakisa, right? So he says, look, why'd you kill the animal? He's like, well, he says he told him to. Okay, he says fine, right? So he's pater, but really he wanted to do the mitzvah. The sanya v'shafach hakisa. This is by kisi hadam. So you shech the animal and you cover the blood. We learn from here. It's the same person. Misha shafach yichasa. The sheikha does the kisei. It's part of his mitzvah. So it happens that one time Reuben shechted and Shimon grabbed the dam and covered it. He grabbed away the mitzvah. So Gamliel got involved and says, you took away the mitzvah? He obligated him to pay, imposed on him a fine, literally 10 coins. So that was his argument. He says, why'd you take away my mitzvah? But of course, ordinarily you can't claim. It's only in this case where the animal is meant to be put to death, so you can say, look, I did your service, whether it was right or wrong, but I'm not chayev for the actual, but typically you can't just approach the other person's animal, kill it and say, well, you told me to. It doesn't work. Amar Rav, on the topic of Baal Tashchis, so we have like this, Dikla, you have a palm tree. Not meant to cut off a palm tree unnecessarily, right? The Toan Kava, which has at least a kav, certain amount of fruit on it. Also, the mix to say it cannot be chopped down because it's a fruit producing tree. Meisve, here comes a kasha, even less than a kav. You have an olive tree. How much is growing on there, which would prevent destruction? Raiva, even a quarter of a kav. Once it's growing that much, you can't chop it down. Shani zeisim dechashivi. Oh, that's because of the prominence involved in olives, chasher, fruit, and therefore even a smaller amount prevents chopping. But otherwise, an ordinary fruit tree, until it gets the kav, it's not considered a proper fruit-producing tree. Look how careful one must be to maintain his fruit trees. Shivchas b'ri. Reb Chanina had a son Shivchas, and the only reason why he died, because he chopped off a fig tree. He wrongly chopped off a fig tree while it was still, producing its fruit. There's one exception. Suppose the value of the actual wood of that fruit tree can generate greater income, greater value than the actual fruit, then mutter, one may chop the tree. Tanya we have the same in a brisa. This point that you may chop the tree if it's needed for its wood value. Rak eitz asher teda. So the pasuk speaking where Klal Yisrael is at war, they need wood supplies to build up their ramparts and their for the war effort. So the pasuk says Rak eitz asher teda. What does asher teda mean? If there's no other tree close by, even ze'ilan machal, even if it's a fruit tree, you can chop it for your war effort. Kilo eitz machalhu. Next part of the pasuk, it's not a fruit tree. Ze'ilan strak, a non-fruit tree can be cut as well. Now, once we allow you to chop even a fruit tree, so why does the pasuk relate to a non-fruit tree, sounding like that's the one to access? Yeah, to prioritize things. Given the option, you should take the non-fruit tree before you resort to chopping of a fruit tree. But perhaps this system applies even when the wood value of the fruit tree exceeds its fruit. The pasuk adds the word rak. It doesn't apply in all situations, as we explained. We have two stories to support this point. Shmuel, Aisi le'arises, he had this sharecropper. One day he brings Shmuel the boss tamri, some dates from his orchard. Achel. Shmuel started eating. Tambu tamadachamra. He discerned a grape flavor, a wine flavor in the dates. Amalei my hai. So he turns to his worker. What's this flavor about? Amalei beini gufni kaimyu. Because don't you know the palm trees are situated right between the vines, and hence the wine flavor that permeated the dates. Amar. Shmuel responds, so you mean that the palm trees are sort of nourishing and sucking from the grapes and the vines? It means they're weakening the grapes. I don't want them there anymore. They're causing more damage than gain. So their presence is so detrimental to the vines, and therefore I'm justified in actually chopping off those palm trees. This is in support of this halacha that in some cases one may chop this fruit tree. Another story was Rav Chizda notices young palm trees growing between his vines. Amali Larise turns to his sharecropper. Akrino, pull them out. I don't want the palms there at the expense of the vines. Gufni kani dikli. You can sell a wine, the product of the geffen, and purchase lands which you can grow in which you can grow the palm trees. But dikli lekanu gufni, you can't do the other way around. You can't sell palm trees and buy vineyard, basically vines and all that is much more valuable and expensive than the palm trees, and therefore I don't want the palm trees there at the expense of interfere with the growth process of the vines, and therefore you can get rid of them. Okay, so to summarize, we discuss Oymed Lemisa, yes. Oymed Lenezakin, we've proved there. It applies as well. We evaluate. We determine whether this weapon actually was worthy of bringing about this injury, in which case we trigger all the payments. And even if he had early recovery, he still is entitled to a full payout. That's his mazel, min hashamayim. Boishes is as per person's vulnerability and susceptibility to shame and embarrassment. That's according to the Tue May. According to Rabbi Kiva, it's a standard fee for all Bnei Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We got the highest payout. One can bring about boishes upon himself when it comes to chavalais. The Brisa says over here that according to Bava Kamma, it's aser, it's called a chayta. Certainly, chas v'shalom, self-katala, self-murder, and destruction of clothing or other aspects of one's property. We discussed specifically maintaining fruit trees, and we have an exception of mu'ula b'damim, in which case it's mutter, as per these two stories. All the best to you, and atzlacha rabba.